And I think we're going to have a joint Q&A.
Joint Q&A
yes,
with
okay.
Aaron and Lilandra. So, yes, go ahead and help yourself to the mics.
Yes.
So I can very much commiserate with you in the feeling of surrounded by churches. I grew up in a town of 9,000 people that had more than 40 churches in it. And so Nigel Barker has a book out that is projecting that the religious will become the minority around 2041.
Right.
Having grown up in the area that I did, I cannot fathom that world. But how does the panel feel about such a projection?
Well, you know, I actually feel that it's going to happen because, you know, as I said, my town is God soaked, right? There's churches all over the place. But when you talk to people, you discover that there's complications there. You know, I have a reputation as the village atheist. And sometimes I'm the atheist rabbi. I actually have people who call me up for advice. I know all the atheists in town. There's a scary number of them. And here's the weird thing. I'm talking to them and I say, you know, I know a whole bunch of other atheists. Can I tell them about you? Right. That's their response. I said, oh no. No, my business would fold if it got out that I was an atheist. So there's these hundreds of atheists in town who are afraid to admit it to anyone else, except on the internet. It's helping a lot. You know, suddenly people are realizing, hey, I'm not alone. I may be in this town with 40 churches, but there's a whole bunch of us atheists here as well. And the internet, at least, is one place where people feel safe coming out. And I think as the momentum builds, we're going to see something radical happen as atheism becomes mainstream, becomes accepted, becomes recognized as a legitimate point of view to have, and suddenly you don't have to be afraid to reveal that. It'll make a huge difference.
Most of the atheists in this country were former Christians. And a poll was done, I wish I could find it, I've been told about it, I hadn't seen it myself. But reportedly, this poll announced that for most of them, the number one answer given for why they rejected their religion was that they had read the Bible. Scientific evidence compels very few people, which I'm surprised at, because that was all that mattered to me, was to determine what's actually right, to improve your understanding, to know how things really are, and to be able to test those conclusions and verify whose perspective is more accurate. If that is the position that you have, then you're going to abandon religion. You may experiment with different religions, but ultimately you will walk away from all of them. And I know several that have taken that course. But that's the third runner-up. And the second one, the second most likely reason that people become atheists are Christians. If it's not the Bible, it's the hypocrisy and the prejudice and the idiocy and the downright open, wanton dishonesty that we see from the religious right. People like Rick Perry and Ken Ham do far more for our cause than we can.
Yes, you really did. Thanks, Texas, for giving us charge. Well, Texas was a bad title.
I find that I take a lot of things for granted, and I thought when you commented about the tax-exempt status of religious institutions, yeah, that bothers me. But I do take it for granted too, also. How many people are questioning that? How open is that? Is that getting out of any closet at all, or is that way down the track, way down the line?
I talked to Dave Silverman of American Atheists. They're thinking about it, about doing something about this. I know Minnesota atheists have been campaigning regularly to Capitol to get that tax exempt status removed. Freedom from Religion Foundation has really been carrying it down on that one, where For instance, there's this wonderful exemption where you can maintain a parsonage. So the priests all get this wonderful tax-free, lovely house. You never pay a penny for it. And furthermore, that's not counted as income for them, so they don't get taxed on it. So there's a whole bunch of things like this. And that's actually, I would call that the biggest obstacle to atheist success, is the churches have a cushy thing. They bring in a lot of money and they don't have to spend much on taxes. And so they've got the money to lobby. And that's a scary thing. I mentioned the churches, all these churches in my town. One of the things I did this summer is I visited some of them to actually find out what it was like to go to these things, and god awful boring. Oh man, really annoying. But one of the things they did is all of them talked about their financial status. This was a big thing to get up and announce. Here's how much we have in our building fund. Here's how much we have in our operating budget. Here's how much we're short. Please donate. And like I went to this one little Lutheran church. It's, the attendance was about the same as what I see here, actually a little less than what we've got here today. And they have an operating budget of $300,000 a year. And they've got this gorgeous brick and oak building. It's, what's wrong with us atheists? Why don't we have, you guys are all going to have to pony up. But yeah, this is a major problem. Money is always the root of evil, right? And this is how they perpetuate themselves, is they've got the money to lobby to maintain this tax-exempt status.
I was talking about this with Bridget Crutchfield. She has a group of Black atheists, and we were talking about Black ministers like Creflo Dollar with the crocodile shoes, and she was telling us that a lot of times some of the churches won't even help them unless they're up to date on their tithe. They'll go and check the record and to make sure that they've been tithing, and they were talking about how they praise God, but if you look at some of the Black neighborhoods, what is there really to praise God for? Because of the economic problems, and they overpraise for stuff like what happened with God setting them free from slavery, but then their neighborhoods are in trouble, and it doesn't seem like that these churches can stay in operation in these economically hard places to live. But what they do is the reason why a group of atheists don't have a large church and a large budget is because with religious belief, you can tell them that the Bible says that you need to give me 10% of your income, that God will bless you, store up your treasures in heaven. Don't store them up here where the moth can destroy them and the robber can take them away. So people will commit more of their resources than they should. And that's how you have these high-rolling pastors. And I don't mean to say that that's just the problem with the Black community. I just happen to be talking to someone from that community about it.
The problem with churches having tax-exempt status for which they're not supposed to also serve as a lobby is that they are also lobbying, so they're violating their own tax-exempt status. On top of that, they enjoy a lot of other privileges that are far more criminal in my perspective, because if I pretend to prescribe medicine or give medical advice, I am guilty of a felony. But if I'm a pastor, I can have people throw their medicine down and I can faith heal them, and if they die, I have no responsibility in that. There are all kinds of things that you can get away with that are crimes that would be, for regular people, considered frauds or worse, that regular people cannot commit, but the clergy can and walk away scot-free. And there's lots of laws actually written out that give them this ability and this immunity. And so it's not just a tax-exempt status. We want to take away all the special privileges of churches and other organizations of religion lying to people for money.
Right. I think another horrible crime you commit is extortion, too. I mean, basically what churches do is tell you, give us money or we're going to set you on fire for eternity.
Just think how much money you could raise if I started doing that. Cough up or I'm going to douse you with gasoline. We don't do that.
Yes.
Another point on this same thing, and having worked for the Internal Revenue Service for a good number of years, is it has neither the incentive nor the manpower to be able to enforce these tax issues that we're talking about. And therefore, it's a blank slate for all of these people. They know they don't have to do what needs to be done because nobody's going to enforce it.
It would seem to me, and I've said this many times, that for religion and for creationists especially, they are all about, where they refuse to be held accountable. Religion is to a large degree denying responsibility. They're denying responsibility to the environment, to the economy, to their fellow man. For anything that you do, whatever ill you do to other people, be forgiven. And all you got to do is say, you believe, and then you get away with murder. It's all okay. It doesn't matter. So you're not responsible for anything. You're not accountable for anything. You don't have to tell the truth. You don't have to back up your assertions with facts. You get away scot-free with everything. And then they always talk about their personal freedoms in all of these discussions whenever science or anything else comes up contrary to their belief. They want to do what they want to do, and they don't want to be responsible or accountable for anything, and that is the problem. Yes, you're behind.
Sounds like they're also government. There's more than 2 government officials involved in something. There's no responsibility there either. You talk about the religion and what they do with money. In any crime, if you want to find out what's going on, follow the money. I don't think religion is an exception to that. Unfortunately, there is a portion of the population that needs some sort of a crutch to lean on because they lack the ability and don't want the ability to think. I have a son who's involved with a very fundamentalist religious organization. Kid's not dumb. He's got a fairly decent IQ, but he got involved in this. I can't get him to think. He just wants to pass it off and go blithely on because thinking hurts. And one of the reasons those of us who are non-believers, humanists, atheists, agnostics, etc., don't have buckets full of money in a coffer someplace is it's pretty hard to guilt trip us since we actually stop and think about things. You know, it's hard to guilt trip somebody that can think. I'll shut up. I could go on for an hour.
Let's do one more, and we're going to have to wrap it up, I think.
Yes, sir, the blue.
Yeah. So you at PZ had mentioned that there are many intelligent theistic individuals out there, and I certainly don't dispute that. But I will say that at the demonstration yesterday, there were many who were willfully ignorant, and that the astute were in short supply. But those individuals were more prone to come up and say, yeah, but our scientists, there's this group of scientists who disagree with mainstream science, and they hold it up as a shield. What role do you see for mainstream science in taking on this group of creation scientists?
Man. That's a whole big bag of worms. Yeah, because most scientists don't care about dealing with creationists. You know, we're in this business because we like science, we like doing science. And that's what we spend most of our time on. And creationism is this gigantic distraction. I think, though, that what we're beginning to see is that more and more scientists are becoming aware that this is that letting it go unchecked is interfering with our ability to do science. Because all you got to do is look at the federal government and look at how they manage NIH and NSF, and you see, oh, popular opinion seems to influence money, so we need to fix this. So there is more involvement, but it's in many cases scientists are not very good at this. They're not used to arguing with morons. Right? It takes a whole nother different style of argument to debate these people. And also what you find is that, as you've mentioned, they've got this bulwark of rationalizations that they have built up over the years, a very highly polished, very superficially slick set of assertions
And the first time you encounter those, many scientists are stumped. These are not things they're used to dealing with. And so we need lots of people who have experience dealing with people like Aaron here, who can easily dismiss those superficial barriers so we can start getting to the core of the problem. And most scientists aren't equipped to do it.
I'd also like to remind everybody here that just as Jonathan Wells, a former Mooney, took his advice from Reverend Sun Myung Moon to go pursue his PhD so that he could undermine Darwinism from within, it was pre-planned and financed by a minister for the purpose of refuting science. And there are a lot of scientists who take this course. They were indoctrinated into their religion and then they get their education. I mean, whoever goes into an education in science, and then decides, you know what, this is driving me to religion. No, it never happens. They have the religion first. Or they could be completely apathetic and then get a religion, but science has never driven anybody to a religious perspective. What you've got right now is you have the school book, the science textbook review board, and I don't know if you guys are aware of it, what used to be where they had a handful of people that were homeschoolers or they had no degrees and really had no education to speak of, and they're making the judgments on our textbooks. You now have a battery of people with PhDs in various fields, and if you're not already aware of them, at least a half a dozen of them are young earth creationists who achieve these degrees with specific intent to undermine your education, and they are evaluating the next lot of textbooks, and at least one, and I think two of them, actually belong to the Discovery Institute. It's been handed over to the enemy to be guaranteed that our education is going to go down the toilet.
Right. So when they wave those creation scientists at you, what they're actually doing is they're waving at you a bunch of people who are committed religious fanatics who have gone through the hard labor of graduate school in order to get a degree and never use it. And Wells is a great example of that. You also find a lot of people who claim to be scientists who actually aren't, who don't even know what science is. And a lot of these are things like dentists. Dentists, engineers, these are all good professional occupations. It takes a great deal of skill and hard work to get degrees in those, but those skills do not teach you science. And so, most of the creation scientists I've talked to, the people who call themselves creation scientists, are no such thing. And the other category, of course, is the ones who've gotten their diplomas from diploma mills. Look at Kent Hovind and his son Eric. Those are fake degrees. I'm sorry, they're not real.
Eric bought a degree too?
He's got a master's degree in something or other from some strange college.
Does it have anything to do with baiting? I mean, bait, really. Sorry.
That was wrong.
I wanted to say something about this. I think what PZ is saying about scientists not being equipped, most scientists not being equipped to address these creation scientists. The pastor yesterday said there are creation scientists too, and what it is some failure of public education. That they don't have critical thinking skills. They don't. It's a logical fallacy. And I told him 2% of scientists are creation scientists, and that doesn't mean they're in a biological, cosmological, geological field. And that's an argument to authority. And we told him about Newton, who's a creationist. Newton's an authority on physics. And he's not the final word on physics. That's not the way science works. And it's just, we need to promote critical thinking in order to address this kind of problem.
A good example too is the skeptics, the amazing Randy, who has dealt with many instances of fraud and quackery in science. And he said, scientists are really lousy at this because scientists don't expect fraud. They don't expect dishonesty and people to lie to them, whereas magicians do. So, it's the same principle, is that scientists aren't necessarily the best people to probe into dishonest misrepresentations of science, because really, until I started getting into this, I did not expect people would lie to me about scientific findings, yet they do all the time in the creationist world.
Okay, we are going to have to wrap it up. If you can hang on for just a second. Johnny, can you work your way up here, because Johnny's going to have an announcement. Do you guys have like a short song you can send us out on, or not? You want to
Have a song. I think you don't have time.
Oh, we don't have time. Okay. Well, Johnny's going to do an announcement. Let's first of all thank all of our panelists.